Imagine looking at a satellite map of Buenos Aires, like right at rush hour.
Oh, yeah.
You see this massive, glowing, pulsating network of lights stretching out across the landscape. You are basically looking at the circulatory system of a metropolis.
Right. It's the lifeblood of the city's mobility.
Exactly. And the main artery of that entire system is Autopistas del Sol. We aren't just talking about a stretch of pavement here. I mean, we are talking about 120 kilometers of highway.
Which is huge.
It's massive, processing over 1 million vehicles every single day. And if you map out its area influence, it touches the daily lives, the commutes, and the local economies of 7.3 million people.
That is a staggering physical reality.
It really is.
But, the mission for our deep dive today goes way beyond just traffic patterns and concrete.
Right.
We're opening up the Autopistas del Sol 2025 annual report to examine a genuinely fascinating corporate survival story.
Yeah, survival is the right word.
It is. We want to understand how a massive infrastructure company manages to survive and, surprisingly, even tries to innovate when its primary source of income is completely frozen.
In a highly inflationary environment, no less.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because we've established the massive physical footprint of the highway, but we really need to translate that into the financial reality of 2025.
Right, the numbers.
Yeah, and when you look at the top-line numbers, they seem almost dizzying. Revenues hit $141,456 million.
Which sounds great, Rob.
On the surface, yeah. That sounds like a colossal amount of money. But then you look at the operating EBITDA, which is basically the core cash profit generated from the actual day-to-day running of the road, and it was only $17,985 million.
Yeah, that's quite a drop.
Which leaves them with a 13.9% margin. For an infrastructure project, that feels dangerously low.
A 13.9% margin for a mature, capital-intensive asset isn't just low. I mean, it is practically the danger zone. Yeah. The report explicitly notes this is well below the historical averages for the toll road sector. Infrastructure companies need high EBITDA margins because that cash is their oxygen.
Right. It's what they use to literally keep the lights on.
Exactly. It's the money they use to repave the roads, pay the toll operators, fix the lighting, maintain the safety systems. When that margin shrinks to 13%, the oxygen is basically being cut off.
But, and this is where I got confused, if you skip down to the final bottom line, you see something completely counterintuitive.
The net profit.
Yeah, the net profit actually reached a positive $77,592 million.
Which makes absolutely no sense at first glance.
None at all. To make this relatable for you, imagine you are managing a massive high-traffic retail store.
Okay.
Your rent keeps going up, your electricity bill is skyrocketing, your labor costs are rising every single month. But the government is standing at the front door telling you that you are legally forbidden from changing the price tags on any of your products.
That's a nightmare scenario.
Right. Your daily operations are getting squeezed so tight you can barely breathe. Yet somehow, at the end of the year, your accountant hands you a piece of paper saying you made a massive profit.
Yeah.
How does a company achieve a massive net profit when their core business is suffocating?
Because that massive profit is, well, it's largely a financial mirage.
A mirage.
Yeah. It is not operational cash flow. Those profits were heavily driven by non-operating financial results. If we break down the report, it shows $90,992 million in net financial asset results.
Okay, where does that come from?
A huge chunk of this comes from foreign exchange gains due to a 40.52% devaluation during the year.
Oh, wow. So it's just currency math.
Exactly. The company holds financial assets that gained value on paper purely because the local currency devalued so sharply.
I see.
That massive paper gain completely masks the grim reality that they were, barely breaking even on the actual physical business of collecting tolls and maintaining the highway.
It's an accounting illusion versus actual cash in the bank.
Right.
I mean, if a company genuinely had that much extra cash lying around, you would expect them to distribute a dividend payout to their shareholders.
Naturally.
But 0 dividends were paid. Instead, they took $320,126 million and locked it away in a reserve fund for future dividends.
Well, the 0 dividend isn't just management deciding to be financially conservative.
Oh, it wasn't?
No, there's an overarching judicial measure, a medida cautelar, currently preventing them from distributing any dividends until their broader legal battles are resolved.
Wait, so the courts froze it?
The courts have essentially frozen their ability to move that money.
Wow. But here's where the retail store analogy falls apart. If your store makes a paper profit based on a currency devaluation, you can't actually hand that paper to your employees to pay their wages.
No, you can't.
And you can't hand it to your shareholders to buy groceries.
Mm.
Because it's an accounting garage, there's no actual operating cash to distribute anyway. The core business was struggling terribly, which pushes us to look at the macroeconomic realities that caused that operational squeeze in the first place. Let's look at the inflation gap.
This is brutal.
Yeah, inflation in 2025 ran at a punishing 31.5%. Yet the company faced a complete government-mandated tariff freeze for the entire year.
And not a single hike.
Right. They could not raise toll prices by a single fraction to match that inflation until March of 2026.
Surviving that kind of gap requires brutal internal discipline.
I can imagine.
They had to implement extreme austerity measures across the board just to keep their operating costs flat year over year. And remember, the cost of all their materials and labor was surging by over 30%.
That's practically impossible math.
It is. And while they were tightening their belts internally, they were fighting a continuous administrative battle externally.
Right, because of the contract.
Yes. The concession contract has built-in mechanisms designed to compensate the company when tariffs are artificially suppressed by the state. So Autopistas del Sol spent the year filing formal, continuous demands to the National Road Directorate, or DNV,
Okay.
requesting compensation for the deficits accumulated not just in 2025, but dating all the way back to 2019.
That sounds like an exhausting bureaucratic nightmare.
Oh, it is.
But the administrative fight over compensation isn't even the biggest threat. They're facing a massive legal battle known as an action of lascividad.
Yes.
The government is actively trying to void the 2018 Integral Agreement, claiming it is inherently harmful to the public interest.
We really need to pause and emphasize the severity of this lascividad lawsuit.
It's a big deal, right?
It's huge.
Yeah.
This is not a standard corporate dispute over a fine or a minor contract clause. This brings the very existence and duration of the concession contract into question. Yeah, the 2018 agreement was the result of a grueling 16-year renegotiation process. It reset the terms of how the highway operates. Now, the state is trying to unilaterally declare that foundational agreement invalid.
Unbelievable.
And to complicate matters further, an international arbitration process at the Chamber of Commerce, which normally handles these disputes, has been paused by a local judge.
So they're just stuck.
They are. And right now, there is a judicial supervisor, a VIOR, actively stationed inside the company, monitoring their renegotiation processes.
Let's bring back our retail store analogy for a second.
Please do.
Not only is the government freezing your prices while your operating costs explode, but now the landlord is actively suing to evict you, claiming your lease from 5 years ago was never valid in the first place.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Oh, and the landlord has placed a supervisor at a desk in your back office to monitor every email you send and every strategic decision you make.
Yep.
If you're managing a company, how do you even plan for next month, let alone the next decade, in that kind of hostile environment?
It requires a very specific, almost compartmentalized kind of corporate resilience.
How so?
Well, the management team has to separate the legal and macroeconomic chaos happening in the boardroom from the physical reality happening on the pavement.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, those 1 million cars are still going to show up at the on-ramps tomorrow morning. The road has to be safe and operational.
Which brings us to what is actually happening on the ground. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Despite bleeding operational cash and operating under the shadow of this massive lawsuit, they still had to adapt. And they actually pushed forward with major modernizations.
Who did?
Let's look at the toll collection technology. Their dynamic tolling system, Autopistas, grew to handle 83.24% of all traffic.
Hitting that 83% mark is a critical operational tipping point.
Why is that number so important?
Because when you are at, say, 50 or 60% adoption, you still have massive physical lines of cars waiting to pay with cash. You cannot tear down the physical toll booths without causing multi-mile gridlock.
That makes sense.
But once more than 8 out of 10 cars are just driving straight through with a tag, the physical footprint of the cash lanes drastically shrinks.
Oh, I see.
That specific drop in volume is what physically allows construction crews to safely demolish the concrete islands in traditional booths.
And that is exactly what they spent 2025 doing.
Yes, they are phasing out the physical booths, upgrading the software, and migrating the manual lanes to prepare for a fully contactless system rolling out in 2026.
What happens to the people working in the booths?
The staff who used to sit in those booths are being retrained to work in remote care centers.
That is a complete transformation of the highway's infrastructure. And the modernization didn't stop at toll collection.
No, it didn't.
They also overhauled their road safety systems. They integrated a new automatic incident detection system called DAI, connecting it directly with their camera network.
Which is state-of-the-art.
Yeah, and on top of that, they completely reorganized the geographic placement of their emergency medical bases. Because of these two changes, they can now guarantee a maximum 18-minute response time to an emergency anywhere on that massive 120-kilometer highway.
Achieving an 18-minute response time across a highly congested urban network is a massive logistical triumph.
It really is.
When an accident happens, the DAI system uses software to instantly detect the anomaly on the camera feeds. It completely bypasses the need for human operators to spot it first.
And that triggers the closest medical base.
Immediately. Doing this while operating under extreme corporate austerity is remarkable.
Truly.
But perhaps the most surprising operational feat, given the financial context, is their infrastructure work.
Oh, wait, you mean the repaving?
Yes.
They repaved heavily trafficked sections of the Acceso Norte, and they used a mix containing 20% recycled asphalt pavement, or RAP. That actually bridges a gap for me. I was wondering how a company that is essentially suffocating on the operational side could afford massive, expensive repaving projects.
Yeah.
Using recycled materials isn't just an environmental win, it has to be a cost-saving survival tactic, right?
It absolutely is.
Because the truly wild part is that they funded this repaving entirely out of their own pockets. The state freezes their income, ties them up in an existential court battle, and the company still self-funds major public infrastructure upgrades.
It is a brilliant survival tactic,
Yeah.
but it is also a strict contractual obligation and a long-term protective measure.
Protective measure. How so?
Well, if they let the surface of the road degrade because they are short on cash, they open themselves up to massive safety liabilities, horrific accidents,
Oh, yeah.
and further contractual breaches that the state could use against them in that Lasividad lawsuit.
Oh, so they have to do it to protect themselves legally.
Exactly. They are fundamentally protecting the physical asset to protect their legal standing. Incorporating the recycled asphalt allows them to meet those obligations more efficiently.
That is so smart.
And, that recycled material provides a perfect lens to look at their broader corporate footprint.
Let's dive into that footprint, because innovation on the road isn't just about speed and safety. Looking at the environmental side, 100% of the energy used for their corporate buildings and the highway lighting now comes from certified renewable sources.
That's a huge milestone.
It is. They are transitioning their vehicle fleet to hybrid and electric models, and they managed to recycle 99 tons of waste this year.
When you look at those environmental achievements through the lens of their financial crisis, you see a management team trying to control exactly what they can control.
That's a great point.
They have absolutely no power over the macroeconomic inflation rate. They have no power over the tariff freeze. But they can control their energy contracts.
Right.
They can control their waste management protocols. They're finding efficiencies in the margins.
And on the social side, they are deploying some really creative strategies. They didn't just run standard, boring road safety campaigns with billboards.
No, they went digital.
Yeah, they deployed an AI avatar on social media to specifically engage younger demographics who are harder to reach through traditional media.
Which is super clever.
And even more interestingly, they stepped off the highway entirely. They partnered with local NGOs to conduct first employment workshops for vulnerable youth.
Wow.
Yeah, they are doing mock interviews and providing theoretical tools for young people trying to enter the workforce in a tough economy.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the environmental and social initiatives are highly effective. But the true tension in this company's story lies in the governance pillar.
Really?
Yeah, as an analyst looking at this report, the dichotomy is fascinating.
What do you mean?
Internally, their governance is incredibly tight. They completely updated their code of ethics this year to make it clearer and more accessible for employees.
Okay.
They successfully recertified their ISO 37001 standard.
Which means what exactly?
It means an independent auditor verified they maintain a strict, zero-tolerance anti-bribery and anti-corruption policy. They have robust audit committees and meticulous risk management protocols in place.
So you have a company meticulously checking every single internal compliance box, running a remarkably tight ship, while operating in an external environment where the state itself is trying to retroactively cancel their existence.
Exactly. The internal governance is performing beautifully, but it is buckling under the immense external pressure of the unresolved concession contract.
It's like building a perfect house on a fault line.
The regulatory governance from the state is chaotic and unpredictable, while the corporate governance for the company is highly structured.
So if you're in their shoes, sitting in the boardroom for the 2026 planning session, what does this all mean? How do you even write a playbook for the future when your entire existence depends on unpredictable variables?
It's tough.
Looking at their stated objectives for 2026, the first priority is pure survival. They must vigorously defend their legal rights.
Which makes sense.
They need to push for a structural reequilibration of the contract and get those tariff adjustments flowing again, or the math simply stops working.
Resolving that legal limbo is the prerequisite for absolutely everything else.
Right. But their second stated priority is to complete that technological transition we discussed. They want to fully implement the contactless payment system and push closer to a free-flow model.
Right, where vehicles don't have to stop or even slow down at all.
Exactly. The cameras just read the plates and tags at highway speeds. But hold on, I'm looking at these tech goals. Free-flow models, remote care centers, AI avatars. Are they actually trying to be the Silicon Valley of highways with genuine, forward-looking strategies? Or is this just a desperate attempt to slash labor costs and infrastructure maintenance because they are running out of cash and the tech is just a convenient side quest?
That is the exact right question to ask.
Thanks.
The reality is that these tech goals are survival mechanisms. It is a defensive modernization.
Defensive modernization. I like that phrase.
Yeah, implementing automation, shifting employees to remote care centers, and utilizing contactless systems significantly reduces operational friction and long-term labor costs.
Because they have to.
Right. When your revenue is frozen by the government, the only way to survive is to drastically and permanently lower your cost to operate.
Which brings us to priority number 3.
Exactly, which explicitly confirms this. They state they must maintain extreme financial prudence and austerity. They desperately need the cost efficiencies generated by the free-flow tech so they can free up the scarce cash required to continue funding critical safety patrols and infrastructure maintenance.
So they literally have to innovate just to tread water.
Yes.
It's this fascinating dynamic. We've explored the complex accounting, the physical operations on the ground, and the existential legal battles. Let's pull all of this together and distill the massive 2025 annual report down to the most critical takeaways for you.
Sounds good.
The most striking realization is the sheer disconnect between the financial statements and the reality on the ground.
Night and day.
Yeah, if you just glance at the final bottom line, Autopistas del Sol looks highly profitable, but that positive number is a total mirage, created by accounting rules and foreign exchange gains on a devaluing currency.
Exactly.
The core operating reality is that they are being severely suffocated by 31.5% inflation, slamming into a rigid government-mandated tariff freeze.
And despite that intense financial suffocation, the second major takeaway is their remarkable operational resilience.
It really is impressive.
The company is successfully modernizing a massive piece of public infrastructure. They are pushing contactless tech, achieving 100% renewable energy usage, and repaving highways with recycled materials.
And doing it all themselves.
Right. They were relying on their own internal discipline and funding it out of their own pockets, rather than waiting for state assistance.
But all of that resilience is overshadowed by the looming cloud of the Licividad lawsuit.
Which is the third big takeaway.
Everything we just talked about, the tech upgrades, the 18-minute safety response times, the repaving, all of it hinges on permanently unfreezing the tariffs in 2026 and surviving the state's attempt to void their contract.
Without legal certainty from the courts, the foundation of the entire enterprise is shaky.
Which leaves us with a critical, open-ended question to ponder.
This raises an important question. We've seen the impressive lengths this company has gone to in order to maintain a vital artery of Buenos Aires. But can a private company realistically continue to self-fund and modernize essential public infrastructure if the state indefinitely freezes their ability to generate revenue?
It's a great question.
At what point does the structural integrity of the road itself and the safety of the millions of people who rely on it every day become dangerously compromised by political and legal gridlock?
It's a sobering thought. When you look back at that satellite map, at that glowing circulatory system of the city pulsing with 1 million cars, you realize how incredibly delicate it actually is.
It really is.
It requires constant energy, relentless investment, and a stable legal environment to keep pumping. Without those, the lights eventually stop moving.
Well said.
Thank you for joining us as we unpacked the hidden forces keeping that system alive. We look forward to exploring the next deep dive with you soon.